The clock on the wall seemed to mock him. Each tick was a small, sharp jab at his patience. 7 p.m. She said she'd be home by 6. Alex stared at his phone, the screen a blank, unforgiving slate. He typed, deleted, then typed again. Where are you? Too simple, running late, to forgiving. He settled on, it's past 7. Everything okay? He hit send. The single check mark remained, a solitary gray soldier standing guard over his unanswered question. He paced the length of the living room, the space suddenly feeling vast and empty. The dinner he prepared was growing cold on the counter, the aroma of roasted chicken now a cloying reminder of his waiting. Another 10 minutes crawled by. He checked his phone again. Nothing. The single gray checkmark hadn't even turned blue. She hadn't even seen it. A knot of frustration tightened in his chest. This wasn't the first time. It was a pattern, he told himself, a pattern of disrespect. His thumb moved with a life of its own, typing faster, angrier. Seriously, Sarah, a simple text isn't too much to ask. I made dinner. He imagined her out with friends, laughing, the sound of her laughter of betrayal. He saw her phone, face down on a table, forgotten, or worse, ignored. His mind, a fertile ground for suspicion, began to sow seeds of doubt. Who was she with? Where was she that was more important than coming home to him? The silence in the apartment was deafening. He could hear the hum of the refrigerator, the distant wail of a siren, the frantic beating of his own heart. He collapsed onto the sofa, the phone clutched in his hand like a weapon. The story he was writing in his head grew darker with every passing minute. It was no longer just about lateness. It was about secrets, about a life she was living without him. The anger was a wildfire now, consuming every rational thought, leaving behind only the scorched earth of suspicion. He fired off another text, each word a digital bullet. I can't do this anymore, Sarah. If you don't care enough to even let me know you're okay, what's the point? He felt a grim satisfaction as he hit send. He was drawing a line. He was taking control. By 8:30, the anger had curdled into a cold, bitter resentment. The food was ruined. The evening was ruined. He envisioned her walking through the door, a flimsy excuse on her lips. He rehearsed his lines, the sharp, cutting words he would use to finally make her understand his pain. He would be cold, distant. He would make her feel as small and ignored as she had made him feel. The front door lock clicked. The sound was unnaturally loud in the silent apartment. Alex's heart hammered against his ribs. He stood up, squaring his shoulders, ready for the confrontation he had been building toward all night. This was it. The door swung open, but it wasn't the scene he had imagined. Sarah stood there, her face pale and streaked with tears. Her favorite coat was torn at the sleeve, and a dark, ugly bruise was already forming on her cheek. She was trembling, clutching a small, slightly crushed box in her hands. She looked at him, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and relief. For a moment, Alex was frozen. This was not the careless, laughing woman from his angry fantasies. This was his wife, hurt and afraid. She took a shaky breath. Alex, she whispered, her voice cracking. I'm so sorry. There was an accident. The air left his lungs in a rush. Accident. The words shattered the carefully constructed fortress of his anger. He stumbled forward, his own script forgotten. Are you okay? What happened? He asked, his voice barely audible. She explained in broken sentences. A car had run a red light. A minor collision, the police had said. No one was seriously injured, but her car was damaged, her phone battery had died in the chaos, and she had to wait for the tow truck. The whole time, she said, all she could think about was getting home to him. Then, she held out the small, crushed box. I was picking this up, she said, a fresh wave of tears spilling down her cheeks. It's silly. It's for our anniversary next week. I wanted to surprise you. Alex took the box from her trembling hands. Inside was a vintage watch, the one he had pointed out in a shop window months ago, the one he never thought they could afford. He looked from the watch to her bruised face, and the full weight of his actions crashed down upon him. He opened his phone, the screen still lit with his last, cruel message. I can't do this anymore. The words stared back at him, a testament to his impatience, his suspicion, his terrible, destructive anger. He had been so sure of her betrayal, so wrapped up in the narrative of his own hurt, that he never once considered a different story. A story where she wasn't careless, but caring. Where she wasn't disrespecting him, but planning a gesture of love. He had built a prison of anger and nearly locked them both inside. He pulled her into his arms, burying his face in her hair, the smell of rain and exhaust fumes mingling with the scent of his wife. "I'm sorry," he whispered, the words feeling utterly inadequate. "I'm so sorry." In that moment, holding her, he understood. He understood that the most dangerous stories are the ones we tell ourselves in the dark, in the silence, when we let our fears write the script. He learned that anger is a blindfold, and patience is the only thing that allows us to see the truth. The silence was no longer empty, it was filled with regret, but also with the profound, aching love and the quiet promise to always wait for the full story. It's a stark reminder of how easily we can let our own minds become our worst enemy. Have you ever let anger or assumption create a story that turned out to be completely wrong? Share your experience in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, consider subscribing for more content that makes you think. Thanks for watching.